Hey guys, today we are looking at decimal place values and specifically kind of what do decimals look like on a number line. So my top number line here, you see I have the numbers 0, 1, and 2. I have some arrows on it saying that that does go on forever, but we don't need the numbers that go on forever. We're just focusing in on a little area here today. The way that our place value system works, so we have our ones, our tens, hundreds. Every time we move over, it takes 10 of whatever it was to move over to that next place value. So it takes 10 ones to make a 10. It takes 10 tens to make 100. It also works the same way going to the left. So today we're going to start looking at place values that are smaller than the ones place, but that pattern still applies, where it takes 10 of one of them to make the next one. So we're going to take a chunk out of our number line. So from 0 to 1, we're going to take it and expand it a little bit so we can look at it a little more closely. So we can see that we have our 0 here. It goes all the way to our 1. I said this is 1 or 1.0. Okay, so it might be a little bit difficult to see that there is a decimal right there. Either one of those will work on this side, and it'll make a little more sense here in just a moment. So it's going to take 10 of this smaller thing to get back up to 1. And so the way we're going to represent that is we have 0, and our next one, it has to be bigger than 0, but it needs to be smaller than 1 because it's in between 0 and 1. So we're going to go 0.1. Okay, the next one is going to be 0.2. And hopefully you start recognizing a pattern. Just like when we're counting, like you always have, where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We keep going up until we make a 10, and that gives us one of the next. So 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and then we get back over here where we could say, okay, we've gotten to a point where we've made a 1, we've gotten to this point, or we could say it's 1 and 0 tenths is another way that we could say that. All right, as we keep going, it's important to recognize that our number system is kind of based on 1. So how many of these decimal-looking things did it take to get to that 1? Well, it took 10, so we could say each of them is 1/10 of 1. And so that's actually what we are going to call these. These are called tenths. So that's like 10 with a THS. So this is the tenths place that we were talking about. So now we're going to break it down even a little bit further. So you can see again, I'm taking a little chunk out of the number line from 0 to 0.1 or from 0 to 1/10, and I've expanded that. And continuing our pattern, it always takes 10 of the smaller place value to make one of the next biggest place value. So it's going to take 10 of these to make up just this much of this number line. And hopefully you recognize a pattern here as I do the first one. So it goes from 0, now 0 point, and it's got to be smaller than 0.1. So what we're going to do is we're going to put another 0 in there, so 0.01. Okay? Then it'd be 0.02, 0.03. So I'm going to pause it here for just a second. I want you to go ahead and copy this down, see if you can just finish out that pattern. All right, hopefully this is what you ended up with. So we keep going. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Remember, anytime we get to a 9, the next one makes it a 10. So it took 10 of these things to make 1/10. So I want you to think about how many of these would it take to make 1? Because that's what we're going to base the name of the place value on. How many of these would it take to make 1? Well, it'd be 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, and hopefully what you notice is we would need 10 tens. Some of you are thinking in your head, well, I know what 10 times 10 is. That's 100. Okay? So it takes 100 of them, but we already have something called the hundreds place. So we're going to follow this word pattern here, and we're going to put a TH on it. We're going to call it the hundredths place. So 100 THS, because it takes 100 of them to make that. Now we have an even smaller place value that we could use, and that would take place in between 0 and 100th. And I'm assuming some of you can already guess what that would be. When we look above 1, it goes ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. So when we go smaller than 1, it goes tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I'm going to write thousandths down here. We're not going to do the whole number line. because I think you probably recognize the pattern. So basically what we do is we write 1,000 THS, and that gives us that place value. One thing that's going to be important to do is be able to tell how much a digit is worth when you see it in a number that has a decimal point. Now, some of you are able to look at this already and know what these different place values are. If you're still a little bit confused, a chart like this can definitely help you. One thing I want to point out about the chart is ones and decimals is kind of like the middle there. This will always be a decimal point. When you look at the 10, notice it's a 1, 0. It's almost like there's a mirror, kind of like right in here somewhere. When you look at tenths, you see it's kind of like a 10, but it's kind of in reverse. It's like 1 and the 0 there. Same thing with hundreds. It kind of looks like 100 backwards. So you should notice that the hundredths will always be 2 spots behind the decimal. Thousandths will always be 3 spots behind the decimal. So if I was looking at a number like this, and I want to know how much is that 3 worth. Okay? One thing I could do is I would just fill it into this chart. So I see the decimal, so I just put my decimal. To the left side of it, there's a 7. So just to the left, I'm going to put a 7. There's nothing else going that way. Just to the right of the decimal is a 3. Then an 8. Then a 6. So it fits in there very, very well. It's organized, and then I can look very easily. How much is the 3 worth? Well, the 3 is in the tenths place. So that 3 would then be worth 3/10. That's how we are going to write that for now. So 3/10. Okay, let me put another one up here. Let's do 65 and 128 thousandths. Okay, and I want you to be able to tell me what this 8 is worth. So if you need to use the chart, use the chart. If not, then just write it down. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put it into our chart. So I always like to start with the decimal. So I put the decimal in, and I see a 5 and a 6. Then go back the other way. Decimal, 1, 2, 8. I want to know what the value of the 8 is, so I go back to the 8. So it's 8 thousandths. So 8, and then I'm going to write 1,000 THS. 8,000. So make sure that you are marking how you are feeling about this skill.